Your story is proof that our greatest wounds can become our greatest gift.
And that's one thing we teach about awareness. I'm the one watching my thoughts. We've entered the spiritual realm, even through the most mundane things. That's why sports are so fun. Art is the language of soul, and we're developing their soulfulness through art. We need something they can practice at so they can log time. They're creating, they're learning, they're growing creative confidence and creative resilience.
What happens when you have everything the world says you should want and feel absolutely nothing? My guest today, Rafael McMaster, was a creative executive at the top of his game, designing for A-list celebrities, working with global brands, living the dream. But he describes feeling emotionally bankrupt. What came next wasn't just a career change. It was a complete life reset that transformed his deepest pain into his greatest superpower. Now he's on a mission to empower 1 million conscious youth through art, mindfulness, and ancient wisdom. This is a story about losing everything to find your true purpose and why the most authentic leaders often rise from the ashes of their former selves. Rafael McMaster, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jason. I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah, I know you started out as we were just off air talking about living in Seattle Art Institute, and then you became a creative executive at a top agency. You're designing for global brands, A-list celebrities, all that things. And then a friend came to you and said that you climbed the top of the corporate ladder only to find it was the ladder was on the wrong building. Can you take us to that moment? And what does emotionally bankrupt, because you use that word too, what does that do? And also, I want to get into your book a little bit.
Absolutely. It's on Amazon. We just completed writing it in May.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it's fresh.
We'll make sure we have the links in the show note. But what is it like when you realize you had been on the wrong building?
That's an empty feeling, right? You get to the top of the ladder that you've been struggling and striving and two-a-days and decades, hard work. Sure, make all the right choices all in a row in sequence, only to get to a place where you think you're supposed to be fulfilled and it's emptiness. I'm reaching for somewhere deep inside only to find there's nothing there. It's this feeling of almost soulfulness, shall I say. And creativity and art, that's the language of the soul, so much soulfulness involved in it, but to put all the eggs in the basket of achieving and then to continue to achieve. And it was my friend Dave Brubaker, right? He said, we climbed to the top of the ladder only to realize our ladder's on the wrong building. I had no purpose. And so to turn inward and try and dig deeper only for that to feel like this vacuum, this abyss, that there's nothing. And that purposelessness created an emptiness that scared me. Because at that point you say, then why am I on this planet? If I'm trying to achieve all this stuff and I got all this stuff, right, I think there's probably nothing more tragic than a person having their dreams come true only to realize that doesn't make you happy.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like on the corporate side of things, especially being in, I talk to a lot of people that are in marketing, it rips the soul out of the art?
Oh, for sure. Because at its core, art as the language of the soul, what a personal experience. It's like my poetry or journaling. But it's also a personal experience like going to the gym. I'm not going to the gym to impress others. I'm going for my own health. So to create for my own spiritual health is a completely different animal than trying to create social psychology for the masses, right? That is what marketing is. And it has its role, but I think it's very different than the spirit of art and creativity. And many people, I work with so many high schoolers. I probably write 15 letters of recommendation a year to all these top high school artists. And so many of them are going to school for fine arts. And I say, if you'd be open, consider this. Consider going to school for design, art direction, creative direction, and not fine art. Because the ones that I know that are world-class at fine art, they go through school, they're doing amazing, and then they turn around, they're 26 or 27, and they're worried about being able to sell this particular piece of work so their baby has baby formula or insurance. And that moment, the sacred connection between a person and their creativity starts to get ruptured.
What did you see with these global brands that you were designing for? What was the main push? Was it shareholder value, ROI? Or was there an actual desire to touch somebody's soul and understand, here's what we're creating, here's what we want our brand to be? Or was it just money?
Oh, I think smart brands and brands that are successful have enough of a compass to know, be authentic, and you're trying to appeal to so many different people and segments and audiences and Everyone's got an opinion. Next, there's so many cooks in a kitchen, product becomes diluted. I can't tell you how many, upset, frustrated art directors and creative directors are out there because they're making beautiful craft. The marketing director says this, or our sales guy says this, and you acquiesce and find the middle path from everybody. But it's really hard to stay true to the artist essence when there's that many cooks in the kitchen. And that's just the nature of the beast, the nature of that process.
Did you find it like, being emotionally bankrupt and then being around creativity, and that's what you're doing? I mean, it's right side brain stuff constantly. What was that for you, like, personally? I mean, I know you question, like, what is life? Why should I even be here type of a thing. But deeply inside, did you separate yourself
You
from your
have to.
work?
That internal schism occurs between the yearning of the soul for purpose and beauty and wonder and awe and what I have to do to survive day in, day out. At a certain point, a deal gets created within myself to say, okay, I'm just going to need to firewall those two because I don't know how to put them together in a sense of convergence and coherence. If I start to firewall those two, which one of these wolves am I feeding? I feed this wolf over and over again for weeks, months, years on end. I turned around and my goodness gracious, I had transformed into somebody that I didn't necessarily love.
Mm-hmm. I know during the struggle of being emotionally bankrupt, and there's a lot of leaders that I talk to, they're facing mental health crisis too. How did you get enough courage to understand that if I can understand it, I can alchemize it? And then that became the foundation of your life's work. How did you transform this?
On one end, it could look like courage. And in retrospect, I understand that it was courage. But at the time, I was in enough pain. Pain is an amazing motivator until spirit begins to pull.
Mm.
There are many people I know that are too comfortable to do the work to transform. Where rock bottom is depends on how far a person wants to dig. The elevator keeps going down. I'm just talking from an emotional, spiritual point of view. How far am I going to go down until I say, hold up, I need a hard reset? The challenge is that I become so comfortable with the trappings. This is day in, day out. It takes that jump, which does require courage. It does require pulling the ripcord and taking a new path. But I'm here to say that new path almost always works out. People who
Yes.
left that old behind and followed their instinct, followed their intuition, followed their soul, found a new path. And it is so much more fulfilling, purposeful. And in that purpose, in that fulfillment, then success follows that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you and I been around Seattle and been in Washington State, and it has some of the most beautiful hiking trails. No one wants to go on just a plain. There's no switchbacks. There's no nothing. You're just going on where like a truck went, and it's all flat ground. You want to climb the mountain, look over, and see the Alpine Lake. Like that middle road that you talked about earlier, where to completing your, creating your own path. Totally two different things. I want to talk about art is the language of the soul. As leaders listening to this, they kind of feel disconnected from their soul. Or even it's like, I'm so busy managing, I have no idea what my creativity even is. And I think as having spiritual intelligence, each of us, as we begin to understand spirituality, that we have to create. That's part of who we are, as spiritual beings, is to create. How do you interpret art as the language of the soul? And what would you say to a leader that can't find their creativity?
Yeah, to land this plane, it's going to require we transform our definition of art. So follow me on this path for a second.
Oh, good. This is fun.
I've heard that thoughts are the language of the mind and emotions are the language of the body, and art is the language of the soul. If art is the language of the soul, then anytime I'm doing any form of art, my soul is present. In fact, that makes sense as to why, even if I'm just swishing some paint around, what I created maybe isn't amazing, but I feel a little bit different. I feel better. Why is that? It's hard to put my finger on that. Our system has these two, you could call it the masculine and feminine energy. You could call it active and receptive, creating and receiving. Anytime I'm in that masculine, active, creating, which is everything, talking, walking, texting, moving, doing the dishes, gardening, any act that I do can be done as an art form. if I do it with repetition, practice, maybe a little creativity, originality, individuality. So that means washing the dishes can be an art form. Sometimes I mindlessly wash the dishes. Sometimes I get into this flow state where I'm throwing the fork and grabbing the next thing as it's going. At the moment, like, dang, I had no idea washing dishes could be so good. I was super present. I was doing it as an art form. I can send a text mindlessly, so mindlessly that I forgot that I sent it. Or I could write it almost like clever poetry with little hit things, maybe the right emoji and the person's cracking up and it really hit them in a deep way. Any act I can do as an art form. Now, here's the reason why this matters. If art is the language of the soul, then when I'm cooking dinner as an art form, my soul is present and I can feel that. People describe that as the flow state. Let's think about this. I'm present, I'm focused, but I'm not thinking. That's the flow state. We've entered the spiritual realm even through the most mundane things. That's why sports are so fun. That's why pickleball, racquetball, golf, we're in a space where we're not thinking, we're flowing. That to me is the spirit. It's the soul. It's in the body. It's inspired. In spirit, in body. That's inspired. That's how we can begin applying art into our everyday everything. Now, when I begin fusing art into my everyday everything, now I'm more soulfully present. Well, I'll be darned if creativity doesn't start to make its way into all the other stuff I'm doing because I'm coming from my soul rather than simply my cognitive thinking ego.
That's so good. I mean, that makes it so much simpler. We all think that we need to go to an art store and buy, everybody
In
always
fact, it's
goes
the
to the
opposite.
canvas.
And we have such a limited understanding of how we define art. It's like
Right.
painting. Well, then no wonder there's no art in the elementary schools. Say, I don't know, they probably need STEM. But if we were to say art is learning to be soulfully present and access the flow state of our higher, I want to make sure to keep that in the schools. And that's part of my mission, realizing art is one of the first things that goes when they're doing the budget cuts. I mean, our elementary school here doesn't have art in it. They have a volunteer program, but no art teacher. And the things that we learn between the ages of 4 and 8 go in like second nature. So I learn to throw a ball. I don't learn to throw a ball. If I'm not doing sufficient art between the ages of 4 and 8, and it is the pathway to learning the language of my soul, that would make sense. Picks up a paintbrush or whatever it is. And when they're 13, it feels awkward. They don't do it. I'm not going to take that elective. Now they're in their 30s and they're like, yeah, art, I feel awkward around it. I'm not comfortable. And that's the same person who isn't comfortable with their relationship with their own soul. Maybe a lot of them found it through sports. Like I said, there's many different pathways. Maybe a person found it through gardening or in the way they teach. So I'm not saying painting is the only way, but to log time in a creative state. And with these kids, it doesn't matter what they're doing. They could be fussing around with clay, they could be doodling, they could be acting, just something creative, something where art is the language of the soul. They become fluent in that language. They now have a higher potentiality and probability of being soul embodied for the rest of their life. And this is what we're talking about, soul and soul embodiment, not as some woo-woo stuff, but as at the core base and foundation of mental health and also success. We see those people in the workplace. They just got that juice. They got that aura or charisma around them. What is that? That's soul. That's what soul is. We know it when we see it.
Yeah, and I want to get into this because I think this is really cool what you're doing. One of the things that I feel like schools miss out on, and I've always said this since the very beginning. I studied somebody named Rudolf Steiner. I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but he did the same thing like you said. Children need to, when they're very young, start getting into art. So it's like, why would you not spend as much that you spend in sports as you do for art? I don't understand that. And like you just said, your school didn't even have an art teacher. That is so weird to me. Why do you think art gets put on the back burner so much?
Sure. I mean, in their defense, their explanation of it, which felt logical, is between the gym teacher, the art teacher, and the oncoming STEM teacher, could only keep 2. Where do you make your decision? All very understandable. If we had a different understanding of the nature of art, then probably what we do is we teach STEAM instead of STEM, creativity and soulfulness into that whole process.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I want to get into the curriculum, the 7 creative wisdom tools. I know you have awareness, acceptance, intention, and so on, but you have a unique strategy for teaching them. especially to skeptical teens. And teens can sometimes be the hardest to teach, but to me, they seem like kids and teens seem still to be open to art, or are they not?
Oh, absolutely they are. We're inherently creative. You give a bunch of 6-year-olds some art supplies and they just get at it. They don't worry about is it good or not. They're off to the races because they're still living in that state where life is an idea and we're expressive beings. It gets worked out of us through the rote process and standardization of schools. But at our heart, to hang out with somebody under the age of 7, they're in the flow state. They're a walking impulse, right? Now, come to Resin any day of the week. Right. Resin is our creative laboratory here in Hermosa Beach, California. Anybody who lives in the greater Los Angeles area, come. I'd love to host you at our creative laboratory. It's 3,800 square feet and it's got a yoga room, a gallery, a music studio, a fashion lab, a design studio, a spray paint alley, cameras, photography, sculpting, 3D VR, digital illustration, any creative medium you can think of, we have it here. The kid comes in and they say, oh, I don't really draw much. I'm not good at art. Then they go on this journey of trying photography, trying drums, trying singing, trying making their voice through a vocoder so it sounds like a robot, all sorts of stuff, having fun with it. Inevitably, they like, oh, I'm really into spray painting. They find their thing. Everyone's got a different thing. And what happens is when you find your thing and you're just naturally good at it, it comes to you just a little bit easier than everybody else. You've got something to really throw yourself into this honing of the craft, this practice, chopping wood and carrying water. This is why this is important. If art is the language of soul and we're developing their soulfulness through art, we need something they can practice at so they can log time. If I don't have something I just doodle every once in a while, how am I going to get 10,000 hours at that? But if I realize, oh yeah, playing guitar just works for me, great. That's something I can chop wood, carry water, and begin to practice sitting in my soulful presence through creativity and art. Now, the strategy that you were speaking of getting high schoolers, right? If you go to a high schooler and you say, I would love to teach you about gratitude. They're like, yeah, I know what gratitude means. Is this some mental health stuff? Totally get it. How do you motivate high schoolers? The current thing that we find, at least locally here, that they obsess about is college admissions process. What schools are they going to be accepted to? That is the great motivator. Our kids have not taken any summers off. We ask them to. You should take no, they all take summer school because if you don't take summer school, then you don't get into that AP chemistry class. And they have it all mapped out, trying to get all these AP courses, which requires them to give up their summers to get into this rat race early. And we give them their own sovereign decision, and this is what they choose. So that really keyed in to say, okay, this is the great motivator, right? Pain is a great motivator, or for these high schoolers, college admissions is a great motivator. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. We are a fantastic place here at Indivisible Arts, headquarters at Resin, to get to log hundreds of hours volunteering, teaching creativity and consciousness to the local kids through the power of art and creativity. That's how we get them in the doors, by being an amazing place to come volunteer. I think we have 18 different high schoolers that have entered into the 400 Club, which means they've volunteered 400 hours. It's really hard to motivate a high schooler to put that many hours into something for free, right? We figured out how to make this fun. There's no way you're getting someone to do that unless it's fun. So they come here after school and they help us teach these consciousness tools, these fundamental life tools. That means they need to know the tools to be able to teach the tools. That's the hustle. You come straight out of teen and say, I need you to know this. Yeah, I already know about intention and compassion and gratitude. I need you to learn this so you can teach it to someone. Not only is that a great motivator, but it's also probably one of the most profound ways to teach someone something, put them in a position where they need to teach it.
That's so good. It's kind of a masterclass in influence. And for any leader listening, when you want to instill a new culture, this is the best way to do it.
Empower them.
Yeah, exactly. If you can get a couple of people that are already on your team and excited about the vision, then have them teach everybody else instead of you doing it. It works. This is great, man. I love this. So the high schoolers themselves are the target, even though the younger kids are doing most of the art. I'm so interested in this discovery part because a lot of kids, I'll hear, I'm not good at math, or I'm not good at art, or I'm not good at sport. But I believe everybody is good at some form of art. Why else would we be here?
Yeah, they just have to find their thing. And so we try to create as many mediums as possible available here so they all have a best shot at trying to find their thing. But the original question is, are the high schools creating also? Yeah, absolutely. So many of these high schoolers are in their first band here. They stay after and learn a specific painting technique, or they had never spray painted. In order for them to be able to teach all the different mediums, well, they need to learn how to do it. Now, since we're pulling from 12 different high schools, and usually I'm in there talking to the AP art students, primarily most of the volunteers, teen volunteers we get here are art students. But you do get some from volunteer organizations that don't have an art background, and it's not necessary. And they do just fine here because they learn the wisdom tools. They teach those tools to others. They hang around, be enthusiastic, go grab the paper towels, help clean up this thing, give this kid some encouragement until they feel comfortable and love. Oh, I think I can make these clay sculpture things. I can help at that station today. They're creating, they're learning, they're growing creative confidence and creative resilience. So this almost becomes even more valuable for the high schoolers that don't have an art background because they come here and it's a safe place to begin to get confident with their own creativity.
That's so good. And I know you're not for profit Invisible Arts. It's built on an anti-ego philosophy.
And real quick, indivisible, not invisible, but divisible. So
Oh.
it's a division sign. And it was a 7-year-old drew this.
That's
and
so cool.
He drew it because he didn't like math and he didn't want to hate math so much, right? So we were teaching the tool of intention, very like Joe Dispenza, the way we teach it. And we're doing visualizations, and we created a symbol. Each person created a symbol for their intention that they were visualizing. His math homework was just really hard on him. He wanted to not hate math so much. So he drew a division sign with an X. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's unity. No division. Let's go.
So the Indivisible Arts, that's so cool. I love that. This anti-ego philosophy, you know, where you even have artists with big egos need not apply. How do you maintain that culture of selflessness and service? I mean, because self-promotion is everything. You knew this in the brand world.
Sure. Attraction, not promotion. It's even more powerful. And the best way to attract it is to be it, to model it. When a new high schooler comes in or a new adult artist comes in and you look around and there's 20 people selflessly serving, no one's complaining. My goodness, that is something I'm so proud of at this culture that we've built. I feel like the proud head coach of a football program that's built a culture over the years. So there's a culture that's a lineage from year to year, and there's no complaining, and they understand the heart of service. When I thought of service when I was, let's say, 35 before this transformational journey, I thought, oh, I need to go to a food bank or donate or help find a lost cat. It was this action and activity, this service activity. But this is the heart of service. This is a perspective of service. Anytime I'm thinking of somebody else, not me, that's service, baby.
Yes.
Service can happen at the office. It can get that other person the cup of coffee. It could be checking in with them. It could just be a mentality or the way you're talking to somebody in a meeting, because it's about thinking about somebody else more than yourself or instead of yourself. And what we've created here is a culture of high schoolers, people in their 20s, adult artists that are really embodying this heart of service. And it's such an abstract concept, but you know it when you see it. But it's so rare out there that when people come here, they have a moment and they're like, I don't think I've ever seen anything else like this. And it's wicked. I invite you and anyone listening, anyone in the greater LA County or California, come visit us, Indivisible Arts, at our gallery, Resin in Hermosa Beach. It's rare that I walk into a room and everyone's conscious, vibe to it. You know, that'll happen at Eckhart Tolle workshops or yoga retreats or silent meditation retreats. But in like average day, more than 30 people, I don't know where else that's happening.
Right.
Now, 100%, maybe more like 90% because you have a couple that are newer students, so on. How do you find that someone is a conscious person? I think that's worth understanding or at least defining. So here's how I'll define conscious. That comes up later in our mission for 1 million conscious youth and so on. Wow. Conscious is defined as someone who knows that they are not their thoughts. They are the one watching their thoughts. They're the one having thoughts. Now, a person who isn't conscious, as I'm explaining that to them, they're like, hold up, wait. No, those are my thoughts. That's me. I like chocolate. How do I know? It's because I thought it. That's my opinion. My brain is putting forth the data blip of, I like chocolate. I don't like chocolate. I only like white chocolate. Let me discern and be the master of my thoughts, because if I'm not controlling, my thoughts are controlling me. Until I was 35, I could not hear this message. I had read Eckhart Tolle. I had done mindfulness stuff. I'd done meditation stuff, but I was too intelligent to really get it. I was too immersed inside of the ego that I had created, the processing power of that supercomputer, to be able to be like, oh, wait, I'm the person at the computer. Oh my gosh. Hypnotic. I'm not that supercomputer. I'm the one at the computer. It's got Wi-Fi. Now this is a new game. And that's where the excitement for me comes back into life. That's when it turns into an interesting journey again. Even if I don't change my career, don't change my job, I can take this same soulful joie de vivre into it. And all of a sudden things look different. It's amazing how things look different when I look at things from the heart, from the lens of the heart. Once I take that 18.5-inch journey from the head to the heart, I'm in a soulful place. And even the most mundane seems perfectly brilliant. A blade of grass can be what an amazing thing it is to be alive at all.
Go ahead. Sorry.
But if I'm racing, I might miss that moment of stillness with that blade of grass.
That's so good. And I know one of your core tools is awareness. Teaching kids you aren't your thoughts. You're the ones watching your thoughts, like you just shared. How do you see that foundation of mindfulness begin to develop in a child or a teenager? What does that look like as a leader, a father? What does that look like for you to be able to watch that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And first I'll touch on how it is we're teaching it. So in this book, a good 40 pages are dedicated to teaching these concepts, complete with, here's a basic XY graphic, positive or negative. Was it about the future, the present, or the past? And they chart it. And here's why. If I'm the one charting the thought, then I'm not the thought. I'm the one charting the thought. Right. But I got a second to evaluate good thought, a bad, positive thought, negative thought. And so then they start practicing it on the go. These cards we have. Taking hacks, just taking swings. Because guess what? You hand me a baseball bat, you can tell me all about it. You can tell me how long it is, how much it weighs, who makes it. Show me how to swing it. I swing it a couple times. That does not make me good at batting. Right? Right. It takes practice for anything. And this concept wasn't brought to me until I was 35. And I'm not a dummy. And I made it all the way through college. And I'm like, how come this never became a topic we covered in class? That's the yearning and the fire inside me that I must do whatever I can in this lifetime, big or small, doesn't matter. I've got something to dedicate my life to. And boy, that feels real neat to be a home run that's finally found its ballpark, right? And when kids practice enough to where they become the aware observer, they get it pretty quick, particularly like 5th and 6th grade, like a sweet spot, because they're old enough and they're about 2 years into developing their ego and their character. They're around 9 or 10, they start developing the ego, the character, the self-awareness, the image. Before that, they're in a flow state. They're a walking impulse that's a reflection of their world and the patterns they've picked up from their family and school, right? So by 5th, 6th grade, they're mature enough to have begun developing an ego or character. They can watch the thought forms. You try to explain it to a 6-year-old, they're like, huh? I am my thoughts. And you're like, oh yeah, you're right. At that age, you still are your thoughts. And so they're old enough to be more skilled at how to practice this tool, but young enough to where there isn't decades of unwiring.
Yes.
That's the thing. We start this journey when we're 35, 25, 45, or 55, whenever it is. And it's, I've got 40 years of patterns in there. Programs I'm running. That's one thing we teach about awareness, right? The truth is, not only am I not my thoughts, I'm the one watching my thoughts, but my thoughts are like programs. If I go outside and say, oh my gosh, it's cold out, I am cold, my brain goes, oh, boss says we're cold. Do the cold thing with the shivering, get the goosebumps, right? I am cold turns on the I am cold program. I am not my thoughts, and I can change that program to, ooh, it's cold out. I need to stay warm. I need to stay warm is a completely different program than I am cold. A person can't begin to catch those patterns and programs and change them until they're practiced at watching their thoughts. The good thing is the person can get really good really quick, days, weeks. Person can practice it anywhere, and nobody has to even know you're practicing. Right. Not only that, it makes reality more fun to not only be observing the outside, but also watching your thoughts and seeing what they're doing. And my thoughts will spin up a story that I get wound up in before I even know it's happening. It's a prison of my own making, but the key is on the inside. And that key is awareness. Unless I know I'm watching a story, I'm in the story. But once I'm watching the story, I can work with that. I can change the story. These programs that they're learning to run, I am cold, I am happy, I am smart, I am good at math, I am optimistic, I am successful, I am lovable. Those programs and any program at that age, well, they're going to do it over and over until it's a pattern. Even if they aren't running the program consciously anymore, the pattern's run. So that's what me as a 35-year-old at the time was contending with, undoing those patterns. But as a kid, as a 10-year-old, even a 13, even a 15-year-old, those patterns aren't that ingrained yet. So there's tremendous hope because they pick it up so quickly and with such a level of efficacy. Put this into a classroom for a year, every single kid's going to be conscious. I know it. And we see it a lot faster than that, but certainly give them an entire school year. We've built out a curriculum where California state accepted in the high schools. And we teach this. We're now heading into our third year teaching it, is California state accepted high school English credits and curriculum. And we teach it to foster youth, which is an amazing high school program called Da Vinci Rise that focuses on kids affected by either incarceration, maybe they're pregnant, or they're from the foster system, or they just need an alternative path in high school. And so that's where we've been teaching this for 3 years. And that's what's sharpened this program. That's what's really made this book tight. Iron sharpening iron, because if it can work there, it can work anywhere. But we also have it working with fifth graders. So we know this works. Consciousness is not some impossible task. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The earlier we begin practicing it, the earlier the kids practice it in a way that resonates with them because it's in a language that's native to them. And that's the other thing we specialize in, that this was written alongside our local kids since pandemic, right? It was in pandemic, we're like, okay, this next generation is going to need some tools.
Yes.
They
Right.
might not show up now, but give them another 15 years of playing World of Warcraft or a shoot 'em up game. And now they're 27 years old and raised on Grand Theft Auto. And those patterns in programs playing in their heads like radio station that they don't even know they're co-signing because they don't know how to watch them enough to transform what they are. That'll take a toll on somebody. That becomes the pattern of who they are as an adult.
Are you seeing that, especially with high schoolers? Are you seeing a toll that was taken on them, like with COVID? Or maybe it's like you said, it's video games or porn or whatever it may be, having
Oh,
their
yeah.
phones. What are you seeing?
Let's start with, according to Q3 2024 Nielsen rating, the average American spends 8.5 hours a day on a screen. 8.5 hours a day. And I'm doing a lot less, so that means there's a lot of people out there doing a lot more. There is that kid where his friends don't see him anymore because he was swallowed whole by his bed and bedroom where he's got video games and porn. A changed kid. Parents were away working all the time, where he's got separated parents, and so it was just with the mom, but the mom works, so left to their own devices, right? Integrity is what we do when we're all alone. What builds that integrity when what these kids went through, what we all went through? Come on, it left an indelible mark on everybody, whether we know it or not, right? And for a 12-year-old, that's a heck of a thing to contend with.
Yes.
So there's so many small, unseen things that, like a kid's in the backseat listening to their parents, and their parents are spooked as heck at the beginning of the pandemic on some like world was going to end stuff. They can't unhear that. And we did lingering feeling like the other shoe is going to drop, but you don't know how or what it is. And it's kind of phantom. So you don't even really know it's there, but the world feels just a little bit dangerous. Yeah, that's what that is. That's what that trauma be. Let it be little t trauma, when we're supposed to be firing one emotion, but we're wiring a different one because of something we've gone through. And we all went through that pandemic together. I know is a heck of a thing for me to process as an adult with tools. I can't imagine being 9 years old.
Yeah, that's absolutely nuts. And I know you identified 3 specific problems in your community. And this is what I want leaders to understand when they see a major problem. Maybe it's at their work, in their industry, or in their community. But instead of feeling overwhelmed, they can do something about it. And that's what you did. You saw there was no art galleries. If there was, from a long distance, they would charge unfair commissions. And then you saw there was no art in schools. How did you systematically start to build a solution for each of those?
Yeah, and that's the key thing. We teach about this tool intention. The key thing of intention is know what the North Star is, and then you don't need a plan. You need to do what can you do today? And that's it over and over. So the vision 10 years ago, I'm like, okay, I'm visualizing. I'm like, I want to have a creative laboratory that's 1 part gallery, 1 part school, photo studio, graphic studio, band room. Why not at this point? Spray paint. Okay. And I tried to find, there was no galleries in Hermosa Beach at the time. There was no art in the elementary schools. Traditional gallery structure is commissioning 40 to 50%. What happens then is I sell my piece for $2,300. I feel like I'm well on my way. This is amazing. I'm doing, wait, $1,150. Oh, wait, I'm going to be paying materials, $850. I'm going to be paying taxes, $6 something. Oh my gosh, I think I just sold this painting for less than minimum wage. And the moment an artist feels that feeling, and that's 95% of artists that aren't the big ones that you've heard of. It's all the struggling ones or all the other ones. Some of them are really amazing, but the marketplace isn't there to support more and more art. It's just, there's a finite amount of wall space held up for longer than the speed of the creation of the art. You've just an obvious mismatch there, right? The moment an artist is firing and wiring that emotion, they're saying to themselves, why am I an artist? I just sold something. I'm supposed to be elated, but instead I feel deflated. They're questioning their own identity. That is a traumatic experience, to be selling a piece of art and then feel like that. And that's so many, I don't want to say a majority, but it might be a majority of struggling or aspiring artists. That's the real of that industry. So I'm like, how do you create an elegant solution that doesn't charge commission? And all the other gallery owners, they're like talking to you, trying to pick minds, business, they're like, I don't want to tell you this, but that's a bad idea. You shouldn't. You're leaving behind your old career to do that. That's a bad idea. Sorry. And I'm like, I'm going to figure out how to make it work. The way you make it work is profit. You make it a nonprofit that fundraises, that writes grants. You figure out how to support the whole heartbeat of the community through writing grants and fundraising to create a zero for art and creativity in the community. And I think this is a replicable model. This can be started anywhere that there needs to be more art, to start a nonprofit, make the wall space available for free to artists if they in turn volunteer. Once they're volunteering, you can start bringing in kids that they're teaching, right?
Yeah, that
and
makes sense.
And it's not, you can't make a culture, but you can make the space. This model, which I offer anyone to just take that idea and run with it, because maybe your community needs it. This model, what it does is it creates the space for culture. And that's what we're seeing here, is this culture of creativity, heart-centeredness, soulfulness, consciousness. It's got a different energy and vibe to it. And it gives all the adults that visit here, it gives a lot of hope. People come here and they're like, you know what? I think this can work out. And never has there been a faster time in human history to be able to spread the intellectual contagion. If 8 million people are liking a dog dancing video, my goodness, we've got a shot. And if consciousness can be taught in a language that they understand, here's what's interesting. So we call the tool awareness. We call it awareness because that's what Eckhart Tolle calls it. This summer, we did 15 high schoolers, met twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday, for 3 hours each day, committed to workshopping and developing this platform for which we're striving for 1 million conscious youth. It was broken up with 4 or 5 that had been here since the beginning, 4 or 5 that had been here for about 4 months, 4 or 5 that were kind of brand new and never really been here before. We're teaching awareness. The first thing we do is we sit in circle, we share in circle. The topic is one of the tools. This topic's awareness. I do the lead pitch. Each person gets 3 to 5 minutes, no crosstalk. You dig what I'm saying? And the new kids were like, cool, but like, boy, when I think about awareness, I mean, I start with like, it's important to be self-aware. And it's important to be aware of your surroundings.
Right.
Got to be aware of your surroundings. But this awareness of my thought stuff, yeah, I don't know. It's just a little bit confusing because you call it awareness. I'm like, okay, then let's workshop this name. If that ain't the right name, I get the confusion, but this needs to be able to communicate telegraphically on social. So like, what's the right word? And this team, like, they played around with thoughts and threw out stuff. It's wicked. It's so cool to be part of. And like, being the straw that stirs the drink in a creative conversation happens to be also just like my calling. It's where I'm in flow. And so you got these high schoolers, you know what they came up with?
Oh, that's
mind
cool.
watching. They're like, oh yeah, I'm practicing the tool of mind watching. If you're listening to this right now and you beat me to the trademark, so be it. I'll see you on the other end of the path. It's okay.
You're just exploiting youth. It's fine.
Listen, you can't spell child laboratory without child labor. Sorry. No. If anyone listening, I didn't mean that. And this is one of our youth drew this, and it makes sense right away.
Yes.
And that's where they said, oh, mind watching. This is mind watching. So a new language for a new generation to take the age old stuff that we know to be true, Buddhism leading to mindfulness, like it's all right there. But you get a bunch of kids together and you say, let's meditate. And they're like, let's do mindfulness. They're like, no, but let's do mind watching. Our meditations are visualization exercises. You're just getting stronger at visualizing, right? And they're visualizing their intentions, then they're fusing it with an elevated emotion while they include sight, sound, smell, touch, feel. So it's a full 3-dimensional thing. So their subconscious can't tell the difference. And then by falling in love with it in real time, they're releasing a little bit of dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins. And so then that fuses, that tells the subconscious, hey, anything involving this is what we want because it gives us pleasure. And our teens are able to explain it the same way that I just explained it.
Yeah, wow, that's so good, man. That pumps me up, knowing that the kids are being able to. I want to get into your mission because this is, and I know we just have a few minutes left, but your mission is to empower 1 million conscious youth.
That's right.
That's an audacious goal. Why the specific number, and what does this look like, this future? What are you hoping for?
You know the story about the two guys walking on the beach and it's low tides, so there's sea stars everywhere. One guy stops and starts throwing in starfish. And at a certain point, the other guy's, hey, hold up. Are we going to stop for all these fish? What does it matter? Guy picks up another one and says, it matters to that one. That's really what we're doing here. But if I told you I was just getting kids conscious, I don't know that I can create traction around that. Like I'm bringing in my old marketing branding self to all the stuff we do. And that's why so many other nonprofits or people in the space are like, gosh, you guys feel really different for a nonprofit. It's because we're taking everything we've learned in these other places and applying it with a fresh mindset. Why 1 million? Because we're going to shoot for the moon. We're going to land in the stars. And what I like about that number is that it's actually totally doable. Particularly in this generation, particularly a person can have 187,000 active Twitch streamers watching them play a video game. We can spread this word, right? And what does that look like? One can only imagine. I watched the news for a second to be like, yo, how did we get here?
Yeah.
Man, oh man. Like we will look at the movies and one's hard pressed to find a handful of movies that are in the future that are not dystopian.
Right.
How can we as a co-creative, collective, conscious and unconscious system of humans on this planet create that positive future when what we're being patterned over and over again is this dystopian stuff, right? So 1 million conscious youth connected on a platform where they're active together and you can activate that group to go grab 5 people and march for this cause. Yeah, that seems pretty interesting. And I think it's exactly what the world's going to need.
Rafael, thank you. Your story is proof that our greatest wounds can become our greatest gifts. And I think that's what you're teaching. To me, what you're doing is true leadership because it's ultimately an act of service. And the work that you're doing with Indivisible Arts isn't just creating arts, it's creating hope and changing these kids' lives. And it's so awesome that you're living so soulful. And for everyone listening, if Rafael's story moved you, you can visit it's indivisiblearts.org. Also, get the book. And is there any
the book
other
isn't just for
websites?
kids. The book isn't just for kids. It's for adults as well. It's the 7 fundamental life tools that we need, the essentials. So get it for you, for a family member, for your kids. It's meant for all ages.
And on the indivisiblearts.org, is there a way if somebody wants to support you guys? Maybe they can't go to LA, they live in New York.
It's the volunteers ways. Ultimately, what we're doing is we're amassing a community of people who really give a crap and want to put their skills they have in their traditional workplace to use to serve the greater good by starting with these kids.
Yeah, that's so good. Thank you, Rafael, because sometimes the path to becoming a better leader, a more self-aware leader is to start with a single act of service, and you're going to do it a millionfold.
Absolutely. And real quick, if I have a second, I do want to talk about the platform that we did build this summer. The kids named it Stream of Consciousness, which is amazing. We got streamofconsciousness.life, which they thought was even cooler. You're streaming videos, you're streaming consciousness. And that's where you can find teens shooting videos, teaching tools through talking about the stuff they've overcome. What this creates is a Khan Academy, but for mental and emotional health tools that anybody who's struggling can go to this online platform and begin learning tools that work from other teens who have used those tools and they're talking about it. It'll be segmented by videos on bullying, math stress, or a hard breakup. If I'm angry, anxious, so you'll be able to search through different things, then you'll see all the videos that relate to that. And that way teens can be teaching other teens. If we can create this as a snowballing movement, because what we're finding is the teens shooting the videos, they get like value out of it, almost like they just went to therapy or they just talked to a Catholic confessional cathartic. So
Right.
yeah, I shot a bunch more videos because I needed to get this stuff off my chest. And they're talking specifically about tangible tools, acceptance, intention, gratitude, compassion, forgiveness over resentment, connection, including connection to a higher power of their own understanding. And that's a whole nother lift for a whole nother day. But that is happening here in South Bay.
That's so cool. Everybody go to indivisiblearts.org, and you said it's streamofconsciousness.life?
Consciousness.life.
Thank you, Rafael. Appreciate you being on the show today.
Awesome.